Alright guys, that's Scrappy again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. More roster drama going down last night with further confirmation as to what is going on at the Esports World Cup, and also some drama between Clay and Standy on what could potentially have been a duo last year, maybe could well be again. Further discussion though from Shotzzy on the unbelievable OpTic Texas victory at the World Championship, especially on Dashy and his reaction during the series. Very much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all then, here we go from the Minnesota Rocket confirming Gunless is gone, Standy is gone as well. Both represented the team for a fair chunk of time this season. Of course, Standy returning after he was on that team initially, way back in Cold War when he made his debut, of course. Gunless, though, was actually expected to stay because we thought that they were maybe going to keep him instead of Accuracy. They haven't in the end. Accuracy stays, Lins stays, and it's Estriel and DiamondCon coming in. Standy gone, though, is, I would say, expected. He didn't play as well as I think that he was obviously hoping to during the course of the season, and this is going to be your team for the Esports World Cup for the Minnesota Rocket. World domination begins, representing, to be fair, G2 Esports at this event. So it is, as expected, Estriel and DiamondCon coming in. I really like this SMG duo, right? This Estriel Lins sub duo, I like the look of it, I like the sound of it. The DiamondCon Accuracy AR duo, it's pretty slow, I'm not gonna lie. It's another Minnesota Rocket classic. I do wonder with Lamar as well, just because, you know, we're pretty sure he was doing something with OpTic from the coaching perspective, right? And all this stuff that happened over the last few days. Whether for Lamar, this is kind of like, all right, I'm gonna play the World Cup because there's $1.8 million on the line. And then after that, depending on what happens, then maybe he'll make his future decided as to whether he's going to continue to being a player, or of course stepping into a coaching role somewhere in there. Most certainly will be coaching opportunities available if he wants them. Furtherly though, if there's even a word on the Esports World Cup, how about this Houston Spartans situation, right? Because this was meant to be the team of four, because Omit Brooklyn were qualified for the Esports World Cup, but the problem was that Cammy, Awakening and Purge all left to join Boston. So then their team with Prolute left was effectively rescinded their spot. So he was then joining Prolute, the Spartans, who qualified instead of Wiz. So it was going to be Hamza, Spart, Fire and Prolute, and Fire was saying that he wasn't going to play, now maybe he is going to play again. It's all a bit confusing. But in the end, they've actually got the spot back. So effectively the team that was going to be the Houston Spartans or whatever are now going to represent the Omit Brooklyn team instead. So Prolute's going to stay, but he is able to play. And I think this is good. I mean, obviously it's tough for Wiz, right? Like someone was going to get screwed over here. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Wiz got screwed over from the team that he was on. You know, obviously he was the only one of those four guys not to make it in the end, just because they're now joining Prolute on this team. But I think it's definitely deserving that Prolute gets to play because he did qualify for it, and I think it would have been unfair to take it away from him. And you know, he's effectively built a new team based on the team that was going to qualify instead of his team. So I think it's unfortunate for Wiz, but all things considered, probably for the best. And yeah, this is going to be your team of four for the Esports World Cup with Fire, Spart, of course Hamza, and then Prolute as well, who's been playing well over the last few weeks. So good to see that happen. And actually, Rafi makes it clear from the Omit side that, you know, we weren't given the spot back. We just made it a mission to get Prolute to play. Boston didn't take our players. They negotiated with us great terms. It's all respect and love for the Breach family. Rules are rules, but man, they just don't make sense. Earns not given, Saudi bounty says. So interesting comments really on the Boston situation and the amount of money potentially they paid in terms of buyouts to actually make this happen, which definitely indicates to me, like, if Boston is still spending money on buyouts, like, they haven't given up on the idea of being a top franchise. Like, they are still going to put money in. It's just the roster they formed doesn't smell championship winner to me, but intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. That team, otherwise, Cammy, Awakening, Purge, and Snoopy. So make of that what you will if you haven't heard of that already. Quickly as well on the coaches, because Zed, Brian Saint, ReeaL, Karma, Rambo, we believe, or at least Jake L believes, so therefore we should probably believe, that they are free agents. They don't seem to have a guarantee or a team option. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that, you know, Karma's going to leave OpTic, right? Obviously not. Or Rambo leaving Surge or whatever. But it does mean that things are a little bit interesting here to look at. Now, Brian Saint does say it's a bit of a red herring, this potentially, because he has a substitute agreement when, you know, he's a free agent, but that's not related to his actual contract as the general manager. So his assumption is that for some of these other players, such as, let's say, or, you know, former players, such as, let's say, Rambo, yes, he might be a free agent from his like substitute contract, but it's quite likely that he's still got a longer term deal. And I don't think they're going to change up Rambo given what he achieved with, you know, a difficult spot in the latter half of the season. Then again, though, was it him that made the decision to have Arcetes, Illy, and then aBeZy on his wrong role at the start of the year? If yes, which probably is yes, then, well, I guess criticism was certainly justified. But, you know, the ReeaL one is definitely interesting, right? Because we saw him kind of imply that he might be leaving the Subliners. Obviously, Zed as well. You got to think that Boston might be considering some further moves over there. It was interesting, though, to see what Standy had to say on this, because he actually made an interesting comment thread, really, basically a big tweet. Unrestricted free agent for the new year, pumped for a tryout game. After some review, this wasn't the greatest year for me, but it will not define me. Had an off start to a Legion because I disagreed with some aspects of how to play the game, and it led to me getting heated. I acted out of sorts due to losing, and that was on me. It's very interesting implications, really, as to how kind of like he was sabotaging his own season in some ways. And, you know, obviously there's outside of the game stuff is definitely implied here, as well as the fact that in game he wasn't really, you know, an absolute force this year. And then he says, like, I got the opportunity to play with Rocker again. One thing I'm proud of is that I always tried my best to stick to the team's game plan and play for the win however I could have. I learned a lot from both teams. It's pretty rare that you see a player be quite, you know, say this much, let's be honest, after a situation like this. But, you know, he says less chatter, more doing. Time to get back in the league for next season. We'll see where, if anywhere, he actually ends up. Just quickly on easyMac as well. This guy's been just the absolute monster behind the scenes for so many years at Breaking Point. At FaZe, of course, he was their analyst for some time. That's no longer the case. He's been working with Esports Engine, with, you know, obviously Breaking Point, on the broadcast and on the coverage side. So, you know, just wanted to give easyMac a shout to literally every single seeded organization that needs any kind of management or coaching or analyst related role. Value will be added. I am absolutely sure about that. These, by the way, are the speculation on the groups that are going to be had at the Esports World Cup. Now, there's some mixed opinions on this because, you know, I've seen these groups go around and then I've seen these groups go around. But I think really what is kind of changed about is whether, you know, where the challengers teams slot in. But it does seem that most people are kind of in agreement that, you know, the teams that are going to be attending are going to be seeded in this way. There is a bit of debate on that, but this is what we think it might be. So I'm going to go with Turtle's one here, but this is what it potentially looks like, right? So OpTic will be the number 1 seed, Legion as the 8th seed, Ravens as the 9th seed, with then Law Gaming as the number 1 challengers team. That is potentially your Group A. Group B, Cloud9, Seattle Surge, G2, which of course is Minnesota Rocker, and then that Omid Brooklyn team we just saw, Ultra, Heretics, Breach, and then FaZe Clan Black, which is actually really interesting as a group, I would say, for Group C. That's one that I'm absolutely keeping an eye on. To be fair, Group A is nice as well. I mean, all the groups are pretty good. Cloud9, by the way, is Subliners, if you guys aren't familiar with the acquisition they made over there. And then the 4th seed, we're pretty sure it's seeded based on World Championship results rather than any other way, which I think would make sense. So you've got then Thieves, FaZe, and then obviously because there's no Gorillas, you've got Clutch Rain here instead, and then the Falcons. So, you know, that's a group that I'm sure some of those teams will feel like they can get out of. But I wanted to show a couple of clips here, especially from, well, the Nadeshot side, but also from the Shotzzy side, on exactly what's happened at the World Championship, right? Because there was that pretty famous now moment where after Dashy clutches up the rounds, they win the invasion, search and destroy against the Subliners. He's kind of got his, you know, head in his hand in the sense that it seemed like he knew they at that point had won. Now, they still, I wouldn't say made a bit of a meal of it, but the following map in the control, there was definitely a world they lose that map. They didn't in the end. They close it out in 6 maps. They close it out 5-1. But, you know, Dashy, it's, you know, incredible what emotions he must have been feeling in that moment, going through everything that he's been through as a player over the last decade to cap it off with this.
I think Shotzzy, up until, you know, winning championships now, has been like an unbelievable player, bro. Without a doubt. But I felt like for him to really warrant some of the comments people had been making about him in COD, the skill mechanically and everything was all there. He just needed to win some more, just to kind of secure his legacy and to be like the best player in the world, like people have been saying, and all this. And he did that, bro. He won champs. Like, put his money where his mouth was. Dashy really just, that was a legacy tournament for Dashy as well. Like, people have been saying Dashy's one of the best players in the world, just like Shotzzy, since he joined OpTic, and I think they needed to win champs, and they did it. We know what Kenny does. That man just always turned up at the right moments for our team, was always just like the rock.
To worry about. 1v1. It's big Bruce.
Right into him. Right into him.
Yes! One more map.
One more map, ladies and gentlemen.
One more fucking map.
It's an invasion control.
It's undeniable.
Coming up next.
In this arena, and it feels good.
Brucey's all smiles.
Come on. It's not over yet, boys. Come on, lock the fuck in.
Not over yet.
Seeing that like frame,
But it's looking so
you could just tell
damn
it.
good.
I'm pretty sure that moment he like took it all in.
Right now, Notorious. Thank
I'm
you
pretty
so
sure
much for
he
that
knew
big
that we wanted
$50
this one,
super
like,
chat. You absolute beast.
In COD history.
I mean, they look second to none. It's very simple. It's like it's very hard to talk
I
strategy.
can't even
when
get
you're
that shaky
dominating
if I
like
wanted
this.
to.
I think we're playing our numbers well. Dude,
Karma as well, making it clear that now he is Mr. Four Rings, right? 3 as a player, and then 4 now, including the World Championship win as a coach, and even as he says, 4 times Call of Duty World Champion, right? So, you know, the first player to ever put that in his bio. Of course, it's true for the likes of Kremp, the likes of Clay. They've also won 3 rings, but, you know, Karma has obviously won all of his on LAN, including now his additional LAN win as a coach. So, you know, it's interesting to look back at Karma's career. People do often and very fondly. I know there was also some discussion I thought was quite interesting lately on who is the Karma of this generation. And I know that people were looking at Kenny as an answer to that question, which is probably a pretty good answer. Underrated individually, does what's necessary for the team, absolute winner mentality player, and, you know, probably underrated. Which is maybe why it's especially interesting now that we have both of those guys on the same team, or the same franchise at least, going forwards, because, you know, I highly doubt that OpTic are going to get involved in any Rostermania drama this offseason on that recent result. Just wanted to mention this though for you guys. So the 2024 CDL Champs viewership, the peak numbers and all this type of stuff. Now, 2018, these numbers are still wrong, by the way. They included Twitch and MLG.TV, and MLG.TV included Twitch. So the actual number here was about 170,000. Like, you know, I say that every time, but I'll say it again. 2020, of course, a bit of an outlier just because of the pandemic and everything. And since then, these have been the numbers. Now, given that we haven't had Twitch, this is very impressive, but it does make you think that, now I'm not trying to make the case, because people always comment when I talk about Twitch, that it should be Twitch exclusive. I don't think it should be. I prefer having both platforms, but, you know, because I prefer watching on YouTube, right? Like, I actually think it's a better experience. But for discovery and for other factors, being on Twitch really is an advantage in massive tournaments like that, and this would have easily eclipsed the all-time records if it had been on more platforms. And still, 283k is very good going, I think, given the circumstances, the peak for the World Championship, but, you know, maybe you could have expected more in certain instances, given, you know, the strength of the tournament, the fact that OpTic made all the way to the finals and eventually won it as well. I think my feeling is generally right now that the live events, as in, you know, the events that we actually fortunately get to attend, and, you know, the amount of fans coming to these events, like, it is ramping up. Like, the amount of interest to go to these events in person is definitely growing big time, which is a great news for the scene. But I think that the overall viewership numbers aren't necessarily growing as maybe they could be, and there's probably some thoughts that the league needs to do on that, exactly how to not exactly resolve it, but you know, just think about what the trade-off balance should be and will continue to be. This was interesting as well. Only 2 sets of teammates in history of COD have teamed together at Champs and then matched up in the finals in the following year. Clay versus Simp and aBeZy did that. Pred versus Sib did that this year, and you know, there's a few other interesting ones really in terms of former teammates playing against each other at the World Championship Grand Final, and there's been a few examples there over the last couple of years. But very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.